Hospitals in India are running dangerously low on oxygen, causing panic amongst medical workers, leading to panicked emergency calls for oxygen resounding from hospitals across the national capital region. We're even hearing hospitals resorting to Twitter asking for help. And after the Prime Minister ensured states that oxygen supplies would now be streamlined, the Home Minister Amit Shah reviewed the situation on Friday evening and directed various measures to augment the supply of oxygen for medical purposes. Neeta Sharma reports.
This intervention was needed long time back, but finally, the Union Home Minister in a high-level review meeting has tried to streamline the last leg of transportation because, there have been complaints by various states and various union territories that oxygen meant for them is not reaching them on time, due to which there is a huge amount of scarcity. We have seen SOS calls being made by various hospitals. In fact, they have also reached out to the various courts in their areas asking intervention from courts also. So it was a very, very sad situation. But today the Union Home Minister reviewed the situation and he has ensured that timely oxygen would be reaching every state and union territory. Various efforts have been put in place. Various efforts have been streamlined. In fact, in a very strong worded letter, the Union Home Secretary has, directed states, and he has also quoted instances wherein many states have stopped the transportation of oxygen cylinders. He has said special corridors should be made, should be put in place so that these oxygen carrying vehicles do not have any problem. In fact, they should be also be treated as ambulances. And not only this, the old oxygen plants also need to be revived because there is a huge amount of shortage as far as oxygen is concerned. So a separate letter has been written to the administrators of various union territories asking district magistrates and superintendent of police to identify old plants in their areas and to revive them so that this acute shortage in all over India can be addressed.
And the first Oxygen Express, as the government is calling it, a train that left Visakhapatnam on Thursday, arrived in Maharashtra's Nagpur on Friday evening with 7 tankers carrying the life-saving medical gas amidst the deadly second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. 3 of these 7 tankers have been unloaded at the Nagpur Junction railway station. The trains carrying the large oxygen tankers pulled out from a facility run by RINL, the Rashtriya Ispat Nigam Limited, in Visakhapatnam on Thursday evening. And in Maharashtra, the state has reported 66,836 new cases and 773 COVID-19 deaths on Friday. Mumbai reported 7,221 new cases in the last 24 hours. But the total number of patients who've recovered and who've been discharged in the last 24 hours stands at 9,541. So that's more than the fresh cases, which means that Mumbai's recovery rate stands at 84% now. But the clock is ticking as India scrambles to move large quantities of medical oxygen by air, by train, by road to hospitals in various parts of the country that are hit hard by a record surge of COVID-19 cases. These hospitals completely overwhelmed with the shortage of everything, from hospital beds to antiviral drugs too.
Outside the emergency ward of Delhi's GTB hospital, these two brothers in tears. Sujay and Vijay Ghosh desperately tried to treat their brother Sukhant, seriously ill with COVID. But after a 4-hour wait for a bed, Sukhant died at the entrance to emergency. Outside Delhi's Pentamed hospital, Pradeep Mishra breaks down. Pentamed Hospital ran out of oxygen this afternoon, asking patients to arrange oxygen cylinders or shift them elsewhere. Mishra's mother, seriously ill with COVID, is inside.
मैं एक नॉर्मल आदमी हूँ, मैं कहाँ अप्रोच करूँ और किसके पास जाऊँ कि मुझे सिलेंडर ऑक्सीजन मिल जाए, क्योंकि हॉस्पिटल में इतने पेशेंट हैं, वो पार्शलिटी तो कर नहीं सकता कि नहीं मेरे को अलग से दे दे। तो मैं अब अपने लेवल पे कहाँ चला जाऊँ कि मेरे को एक सिलेंडर मिल जाए, ऑक्सीजन मिल जाए जो मैं कर लूँ, और फिर मेरी कैपेसिटी से बाहर वो चीज़ें मार्केट में मिल रही हैं।
In in one of Delhi's biggest private hospitals, confusion deepened over whether a lack of oxygen turned deadly.
Sir Gangaram Hospital put out a message at 8 a.m. claiming 25 of their sickest COVID patients had lost their lives in the last 24 hours. Their ventilators and BiPAP machines had stopped working effectively, and the lives of another 60 of their most sickest patients were in peril, something their medical director Dr. Katoch also confirmed to me on the phone.
But the hospital's chairman had a different version of events.
Is this due to lack of oxygen supply?
That is not true. They have not died because we were not having oxygen. We are maintaining oxygen supply at lower level, and there have been no deaths because there is no oxygen at all. And that point has not yet come because state government and central government, they are ensuring a constant supply, though at a low level.
For the third straight day in a row, Delhi hospitals sent out SOS messages to the government urgently requesting medical oxygen. From Max Saket to Batra Hospital to Holy Family Hospital.
We have about 500 liters of liquid medical oxygen left with us. Now this is enough for half an hour. Now think of a patient's life after half an hour. We have declared emergency. We are running from pillar to post for the liquid oxygen.
Oxygen does arrive at the last minute, like at Delhi's Holy Family Hospital, but there is no guarantee when the next batch will come.
It was a very critical situation. We had almost last 30 minutes of oxygen left in the tank, the liquid medical oxygen. So we had made a backup of multiple cylinders that we had lined up to have some more backup, but we didn't know if it would work because the load is so high. We were not sure that it would collapse or it would work.
Just in the last half an hour, we have seen 3 crises here at the GTB emergency ward. There are no beds here, but an overwhelming wave of patients who need help, beds and oxygen. There is oxygen here at GTB, but no beds. Other hospitals are left gasping for air with an unreliable oxygen supply. With Akshay Dongre, Sushil Rathi, AJ Joseph and Saurabh Shukla, Meher Pandey for NDTV.
And 1 year ago, India was placed under a nationwide lockdown. The world's strictest coronavirus lockdown was imposed on India to halt the virus's spread, ostensibly to ramp up testing and tracing facilities, to buy time to beef up medical infrastructure and medical capabilities. Yet here we are, a year later, with gut-wrenching tales coming in from all over India of grief and loss, now just amplified by a lack of depth in dignity too.
As the pandemic sweeps through the country, anger, grief and tempers running high. In Bareilly, the manager of a private hospital tied to a pole and beaten by angry relatives after bodies of 2 patients who died due to COVID were exchanged and given to different families for last rites. In the case of Rakesh, the family discovered they were cremating the wrong person when they uncovered his face on the funeral pyre. His body has been exchanged with another COVID patient, Mahesh Gupta. From the Saraswati Medical College in Unnao, a video that has now gone viral showing the lack of facilities.
ये देखिए मैं यहाँ सरस्वती उन्नाव मेडिकल कॉलेज में हूँ, यहाँ पे कोई व्यवस्था नहीं है। ये रात का टाइम हो रहा है लगभग। ये देखिए ये सब पेशेंट ऑक्सीजन पे हैं। ये सारे पेशेंट ऑक्सीजन पे इमरजेंसी में हैं और यहाँ पे कोई व्यवस्था नहीं है, कोई एक स्टाफ नहीं है।
And from the same hospital, bodies of COVID patients hastily loaded into transport vehicles wrapped in polythene.
कुछ भी नहीं है वहाँ पे, सिर्फ लापरवाही है। अच्छा मरीज हमारा आया और रात में हमको दो घंटे बाद फोन किया कि आपका मरीज एक्सपायर हो गया, और बल्कि उसको ना ऑक्सीजन दिया, वो गिलगिलाता रहा, कहता रहा मुझे ऑक्सीजन दो, ना ऑक्सीजन दिया ना कुछ दिया।
Another shocking video, this time from Rohilkhand Medical College. With no beds available, the hospital has allegedly shut its doors to keep patients out.
रात के 2 बज चुके हैं, अस्पताल पूरा बंद करेगा मेन गेट, कोई पेशेंट को ले नहीं रहे हैं। अगर कुछ भी होता तो जिम्मेदारी इनकी होगी। ये देख लीजिए, यहाँ पे भीड़ भाड़ भी, बहुत लोग भी सब हैं, उनके पेशेंट के टेंडर भी हैं, उनके साथ वाले भी हैं, और पेशेंट को वो देख लीजिए, पेशेंट की भी हालत बहुत है। ये मरीज के पेशेंट जो रो रहे हैं, उनका पेशेंट भर्ती नहीं हो रहा है, 3 घंटे हो गए हैं। अगर इनका कुछ भी होती है तो जिम्मेदारी किसकी होगी?
इंसान को सुख दुख लगा रहता है और कुछ लोग हमेशा दुखी रहते ही हैं, लेकिन ये पहला मौका है जब समाज में हर कोई दुखी है। एक तकलीफ का समंदर है, लगता है आपके चारों तरफ बहता जाता है, हर तरफ मौत है, दर्द है, तकलीफें हैं।
With the highest number of active COVID cases in the country, Bengaluru is now running short of ICU beds. The healthcare infrastructure in Bengaluru, which was known as a medical tourism destination in the pre-COVID times, has been crumbling under the steep number of infections in the second wave. And now no ICU bed signs can be seen everywhere. And the result of the shortfall can be tragic. Maya Sharma reports.
The struggle for an ICU bed in Bengaluru, as in many places around our country, is real and often a matter of life and death.
In the hospital, we didn't get beds.
ICU beds. Okay. We tried calling, we called BBMP, everybody. We didn't get any of the ICU beds. Then they were only telling that you have to wait. We kept waiting. Then finally we somehow managed to get the cylinder. But by the time we could put, he was no more. He left us. So we didn't get any help from them.
Bengaluru in normal times is a medical tourism destination, one of India's top cities for medical care. But the system cannot take the numbers in this second wave.
Somebody's oxygen saturation is below 80 on room air, on admission. Somebody has a tachycardia. These are the patients who go to ICU directly, and there is a huge demand of ICU beds right now in Bangalore.
The state government says it will meet the shortfall.
We are setting up 2,000 beds of modular ICU with 800 to 1,000 ventilators in it.
Adding to the sharpness of grief, the knowledge that it was maybe shortage of infrastructure that meant a loved one could not be saved. With DM Kumar, Maya Sharma in Bengaluru for NDTV.
And scenes similar to last year are being seen at the Secunderabad railway station once again, as hundreds of migrants are crowding there to catch the first train to get back to their homes. Curfew imposed this week has added to apprehensions that a lockdown is impending.
It's late evening, curfew is on in Telangana from 9 p.m. onwards, and that's the reason why huge numbers of people have in fact gathered here. All of them in fact migrants who are trying to get back to their homes. We are in fact in the parking lot of the Secunderabad railway station. If you just pan and see, you'll see Secunderabad railway station on the other side, and in fact there have been pandals that have been put up there for the sake of migrants who are coming in big numbers as well. All these people not being allowed into the station, being asked to stay on the side of the parking lot in order to not inconvenience or be stranded all over. But the big danger here, of course, is that there is no social distancing. Many of them, of course, trying to ensure that they remain safe, but they are all sitting together, eating together, sleeping together, waiting for their trains at this point in time. Many of them telling us that the fear of lockdown is what is taking them back home. आप कहाँ से हो, क्या नाम है, कहाँ जा रहे हैं?
मेरा नाम राजकुमार है, मैं बिहार से हूँ और अभी फिलहाल भी अपने बिहार डिस्ट्रिक्ट में जा रहा हूँ।
कौन कौन है आपके साथ?
ये मैं हूँ, ये मेरे भैया और मेरी भाभी है।
आप भी यहाँ पे काम करते थे?
जी।
और यहाँ पे जाने का वजह क्या है? घर वापस अभी जाने?
घर जाने की वजह मान लीजिए कि एक तो हमारे साथ फैमिली है और लॉकडाउन की वजह है, फंस जाएंगे तो बहुत परेशानी होता है हम लोग को, इसलिए हम लोग कॉलेज जाने जाते हैं।
आप क्या काम करते हो?
वेल्डर का।
और आपके भाई?
भाई वेल्डर हूँ।
Danger of lockdown and what they have seen the last time round, that is what is forcing them in fact to go back home, even though situation right now does not seem dire in Telangana or elsewhere. In Hyderabad with camera person Nagaraju, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.